very young age. Grew up in Memphis, but would spend my summers here with relatives. And then when I was 18, the South was real economically depressed, I could say. So I'd been doing work like digging ditches for $1 an hour, and it just didn't resonate with me. At the end of the week, at $1 an hour after taxes, you got like $34 or something. That's not much money for a whole week of really hard labor. So Chicago looked really good because I heard they had factories and it paid benefits, and so I headed north for one of those factory jobs. And I didn't know that there was a blues scene there. I'd already started playing guitar and harmonica in Memphis just because I love blues. I had no plan to be on stage. I had no goal to be in the spotlight. I just liked the music, period. That's all. But when I got to Chicago, and I didn't know there was a blues scene there. To me, it was just some big town up north that had a lot of factories, and that's all I knew. But the first job I got was a driver for an exterminator. So I'd drive him all over Chicago, and I learned the city right away, and I would see signs in windows of bars and posters that say like Elmore James, Tuesday night, or Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters. And I'm like, wow, all those guys are right here by heroes. You know, I got all their records. And I had been told once that anybody in the entertainment business either lives in Hollywood or New York City. So I just wasn't expecting this in Chicago. So right away I started hanging out in the clubs and got to know everybody. And I wasn't going around saying, can I sit in? I didn't even tell anybody I played. I was happy enough to, just hang out. And coming from Memphis, I already knew how to drink, so I fit in pretty good. And then somebody told Muddy that this waitress I knew told Muddy, you ought to hear Charlie play harmonica. Well, that changed everything, because Muddy insisted I sit in, which wasn't unusual. They would play till 4 in the morning. That's a lot of time to kill, so Muddy would always invite people to sit in. A lot of musicians hung out at Pepper's Lounge, which was his home club if he wasn't on the road, and he lived right around the corner. But when I sat in with Muddy, a lot of musicians that heard me, word started getting out, and they started offering me gigs. And man, I thought, you're going to pay me to do this? Wow, this is my ticket out of the factory. And I got really focused when I found out I could make money playing harmonica. And they were really encouraging and really pushed me to not only play but sing, and I didn't really want to do any of that, but I saw the beauty of it and stuck with it.
Yeah.
And it paid off.
That's it in a nutshell. You're looking at the nutshell.
2 questions. A simple question is, you have it recorded on a few different albums, and in one of them you tell the story of the woman before you start singing the song, and you said, it's nobody that lives around here. I like that recording the best. Do you remember which album it is?
I don't even remember anything at all about it.
Do you remember the woman? I want to hear about the woman.
I know the tune you're
She may be your woman, but
she
she comes to see me every night.
Yeah, every now and then or something. I was just making it up. I was just singing it around the house one day, and Henrietta said, did you write that? Or I said, well, I just kind of made it up. She said, yo, that's a song you can maybe think about recording. So I put some more verses to it, and it just became a tune like that. I don't know where it came from. It was in my head somewhere. It wasn't about any particular person.
I
Even if
believed
it was,
it all
I couldn't
this
tell
time.
you.
Hugh has a question.
Yeah, Mr. Musselwhite.
Just call me Charlie.
Cristo Redemptor. So I've been trying to learn that song. It's one of the toughest songs I think I've ever tried to learn, because every note has to be so pure, especially that starting free bend.
Yeah, when you come back to it to hold it,
Yes.
bent like this.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is.
What's the story behind that song? I never-
Well, in all the clubs I was playing, the jukeboxes, they'd have a lot of blues, but they had jazz too. Half the jukebox would be, you know, Jack McDuff and stuff. So I'm not sure if that's where I heard it, but somewhere I heard that the Donald Byrd version of Cristo Redentor. And as soon as I heard it, the melody, I just thought, I gotta play that. It just really resonated with me. And it's not really a blues, but it's real bluesy, and it's got that feel, and I just had to play it. That's the short story. And I'm still, every time I play it, it seems like it's always different somehow. And that holding that bent note is still not a piece of cake.
Any tips on how to do that?
Well, some people will file the blow reed so it comes up to that note, so you just have to blow. You know, you drawing on 2 is like, say a C harmonica would be a G, and blowing on 3 is also a G. So you don't really need 2 Gs. So if you file that one up so it's an A, you know, file it, it'll get sharper and sharper. You bing, 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 bing. When you get it to A, which is the same note as the 6th draw, then when you want to start and come back to that note, you just blow on it instead of bending it. That's an easy way. That's the way to cheat and do it.
Cheating way.
No, I don't do that. The tone is different, and the tone is better if you're drawing that note.
Thanks.
Sure.
Paula, birthday girl. Paula from England.
Ah,
I'd like sideshow.
Oh, awesome.
If you could only sing one song ever again, what song would you play?
if I only sing one song,
Sorry, if you could only play one song ever again, what song would it be?
if I could only play one song every day, what would,
Ever again.
oh, ever again? Well, I guess I could go out with Cristo Redentor. That was on my first album. And I tried to quit playing that song. I thought people surely must be getting tired of hearing it. And people would say, I waited all night, you didn't play Cristo Redentor. They're angry at me. I'm sorry. So almost every night I play that tune. And it never gets stale. It always seems alive, like it has its own spirit to it or something. And I just get to let it go through me. Something like that.
I have a question. I want to hear a story about little Walter. Some kind of encounter you may have had with him.
I was telling a story about Walter the other day. I'd gone to this club where little Walter was playing, and we're sitting at a table talking. He's on a break, and this, oh, there's some language in here I shouldn't use. I'll let you use your imagination.
We're not easily offended.
So anyhow, this guy comes up and says, hey, Walter, next set, can you play the title? And Walter says, I don't know nothing about no title. Yeah, man, I got the record at home. You must have me mixed up with somebody else. I never heard no title. And the guy finally just slinks away, gives up. Now, I know he recorded it to him called the title, and I had it on a 45, so I said, Walter, why, you know, I know you recorded that too. Why'd you tell him that? He said, oh, man, oh, that mother. You know, if he don't like what I'm playing, why don't he just stay home and listen to his He's always driving me crazy. Play this, play that. Why don't you stay home and listen to your records? And at the same time, I remember there was a couple of guys around Chicago that mimicked Walter. I mean, they limped like him. Walter had been shot in the knee, so he had this limp when he walked. And they wanted to be just like little Walter. And this guy walks by limping, and I see Walter watching him, and he goes, look at that fool. A lot of, you know, that movie, Cadillac Records,
Yeah.
that portrayed Little Walter. Man, that, Little Walter was the exact opposite of that guy in the movie. He wasn't nothing like that. Walter was a nice guy, loved to have a good time, tell a joke, have a laugh. I mean, he was a tough guy, pound for pound. And he wasn't going to back up from me, but he didn't go around shooting at people or starting trouble or nothing. He was a great guy. I'm real fortunate to have known him.
Yeah.
And he helped me out of a few situations too that were uncomfortable. Anyhow,
Okay, that's the next
Bring
question.
back those good memories. Yeah, that movie bummed me out big time. I was so mad. I was like, I want to like, talk to somebody, get his, his family to like, step up and say, what, don't, like, the guy's gone, he can't defend himself. And like, portraying him as a murderer, point blank, is so bad.
yeah, well, all of the portrayals in there were pretty much off base. They
Oh, I
had
know.
Howlin Wolf driving a pickup truck. Wolf didn't drive a pickup. He had a nice car. He came to town in a sedan, not an old beat-up pickup truck. But that was how the producers, I guess, envisioned it. Instead of finding out the truth, they just made up stuff.
Yeah, art license, artistic license or something, but that's like, I was going overboard, I thought.
Just a waste. It really has hardly anything to do with what really happened.
Exactly. So tell us something about Howlin' Wolf then.
Gosh, where to start? One thing, Wolf's tone was just massive.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like a real technical harmonica player that could play, all these jazzy runs or nothing. He only needed about 3 notes, but everything was in those 3 notes. It said it all, when he'd play those 3 notes, it was totally covered the situation. And he would like stalk through the room playing harmonica or guitar, and what a thrill to just sit there in the club and listen to him play and sing, and also it was kind of like he'd say, well, we got Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. They came up here from Hernando, Mississippi to see their daughter. She's going to school here. Let's have a hand for them. And everybody clapped. Over here we got Mr. So-and-so. He just got a promotion at work. Let's have a hand for Mr. So-and-so. It was like a community social thing, not just a blues event. And people would, from the South, would see each other. Hey man, last time I saw you was in Laurel, Mississippi. Yeah, well, I'm here now. People's paths would come together in a place like that. We were all from the South, and the South Side of Chicago was often like North Mississippi. Eventually, you'd run into everybody you knew back home.
So did you know people like, people around then, like Homesick James and people
Oh,
like
I knew
that?
Homesick real well.
Yeah. How about Jesse Fortune? Did you know him?
Who?
Jesse Fortune?
No, I don't know. I've heard that name. I don't know.
Because I had this compilation of 60s music from Chicago, and that's how I heard about him. And Harold Burridge.
Who?
Harold Burridge. Burridge. B-U-R-R-A-G-E-R. Burridge. Singers. Anyway,
I remember Burris.
but Homesick James was, maybe it was Burris.
Burris, he lived in California. He lived in Oakland, I think.
No, this was,
And he
this
was,
Chicago.
He was kin to Sean Carter. What?
Me?
Can't hear,
You
can't
can't
hear
hear
her.
me? Oh, sorry. I was just asking about some lesser known players in Chicago. Well, Homesick James. Tell us a little bit about him. You knew him, Homesick James.
Well, Homesick, I used to live in a part of town called Old Town on Wells Street. And me and Big Joe Williams were living in the back of a record store. There was a hallway went back near the rooms behind the record store. And Homesick lived in the area, and he'd come by often, and we'd just sit around and have a little taste, and talk about the good old days. He'd talk about Sleepy John Estes and Hammy Nixon and Yank Rachel and all the guys he knew when he was growing up, and the parties they used to play together. And, I remember one time he said they were playing some fish fry or something, and somebody started shooting or something. So there was a fight broke out, and everybody took off running, and they got back to the house, and Sleepy John Estes, who was blind, had beat them all home. Not only did he beat them home, he was in bed. Well, later I found out that Elmore James was staying with Homesick, and I sure would have liked to have met Elmore James, but Homesick never told me at the time that Elmore was staying with him, and then he died before I got to meet him. One of those things.
Tell us about Big Walter. I came to record with him and do some stuff with him.
Yeah, Shaky Walter. Some people call him Big Walter. He had other nicknames. I always knew him as Shaky. Gosh, there's so many stories. There was a club called Rose and Kelly's Blue Lounge right down the street from Walter. And Walter would be there every night. It became like a harmonica player's hangout. And I was working there with Johnny Young and Floyd Jones and I forget who else, and Carrie Bell would play there. All the harmonica players would come by, and we'd stand shoulder to shoulder and take turns trying to kind of outdo each other in a real friendly way. The guy would play, and when he thought he had done pretty well, he'd pass the microphone and the same harmonica to the next guy. We all played the same harmonica. And everybody watched to see if I was going to do it too. I did. And it was all real friendly, and then Shaky would walk up and take the microphone and just blow us all away. And that's where I first discovered fourth position. Walter I noticed he had two harmonicas back to back, and he was playing one, and I could tell from what he was playing that he was playing second position, the key of A on a D harmonica. Then with a flourish, he flips them over and starts playing in the key of A again, but I didn't recognize the patterns. And when he got through, I walked over and said, "Walter, what's that other harmonica you got?" And he showed me he was playing the key of A on a C harmonica. Wow, fourth position. I'd never heard of fourth position. And it was amazing to me. I'd only heard of first and second and third. I didn't know there was any more to it. Well, a couple of weeks later, I was walking down 63rd Street, and I came across Little Walter. And I said, "Walter, I saw Shaky. He was playing in the key of A on a C harmonica. I've never heard of such a thing." And Walter just shrugged his shoulders and said, "That ain't nothing. You can play in the key of E on a C harmonica." What? So that's fifth position. So that really opened my eyes. None of that, so there's no, as far as I know, they never recorded these other positions on records. But that's where I found out about it. For sure. The more even if you don't use something like that, it just gives you more ideas of a mental image of the harmonica. And the more information you have how it works, the more freedom it gives you. There was another story, and I'm forgetting it now. There's a lot of, one time I'm sitting there talking to Shaky, and I said, "Did you ever run across Robert Johnson?" And you have to understand that Shaky loved to put people on. With the straightest face, he'd tell you the biggest lie in the world, just to entertain himself. So when he said, "Oh yeah, I didn't know," as he, fooling with me. But then he got up and sang 3 or 4 Robert Johnson tunes, one right after the other. And there's no way he could have Walter didn't even have a record player. He didn't go study these at home and come prepared to. So I imagine he really did know Robert Johnson. And they say that the tune he does, "Little Boy Blue, Come Blow Your Horn," that he said that Robert Johnson wrote that for him. Could be true. But here's another story. I once asked him, I said, you ever run across I think they were called the Harmonica Rascals. They would stand in a circle, and they all had, the chord harmonica and the chromatic and all these, they would play arrangements, and they would have comedy routines, and they always had the little midget guy named Johnny Paleo, and he wore chaps. And when I mentioned this group, Walter said, oh yeah, I started that group. Really? He said, I don't remember seeing you in that group. Said, oh yeah. Which one were you? He said, I was the midget. They didn't understand Shakey's about 6'2". I said, Walter, how could you be the midget when you're like 6'2"? He said, I disguised myself. That explains that.
That's a great story.
Another time, somebody asked Walter about, did you ever know Charlie Patton? Charlie Patton, he's up at my apartment right now. What? I thought he died long ago. No. He got in some trouble in Mississippi, and we're Masons, so he came up, I'm hiding him out at my apartment right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you come back and forth from Chicago to Mississippi much?
Once I got up to Chicago, I was pretty much there. I'd come back to Memphis to visit my mom. Or I might come down here, but mostly Memphis. And I'd take the Greyhound down. I didn't have a car. And I was just scuffling. I was 18 when I left home. I never went back, really, except to visit.
Did you come across to Arkansas, to West Memphis?
Did I go over to West? Yeah, I used to go over on 6th Street and 7th Street. There was a bunch of little clubs over there where they had blues trios and stuff. And then also they had
Plantation.
the Plantation Inn where the Fattest Newborn, the piano player, would play there, and his brother Calvin
Yeah.
Newborn would be playing there, and who did Hot Buttered Soul?
Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes would play
Hayes,
there. They
yeah.
were always playing there. I didn't really know who they were. But I knew they were really good, and it was great to go and hear them play. And there was another club called Daddy's, and then the Cotton Club. One of them, Charlie Rich, was a bouncer there, and he'd get up on the breaks and play piano. Later on, he became pretty famous. So yeah, I used to go to West Memphis. They have dog races over there too. They used to do a lot of gambling, and they even had pinball machines that paid off money.
Yeah, they say it was just kind of wide open, right? Like they tried to clean up Memphis for a while, and so everything went over there, and it was just wide open. It's the way the story goes.
You just go to West Memphis, and well, I knew bootleggers that I had a 1950 Lincoln I bought for $99, and it had a big old trunk, and they would fill my trunk up with 5-gallon cans of moonshine, and I would drive it over to Arkansas, up like in Lepanto, and
That's where I'm from, Lepanto.
oh, you know Lepanto?
That's
Turtle
where I grew
races.
up.
Well, there was a club there called the Starlight.
Right, I've been to the Starlight.
In the back on the back wall of the Starlight, there was 2 doors. It said ladies and men. Either one you opened up just went outside. They used to say that was the roughest club in the South. And Blytheville, and up in
Yeah.
Kennett, Missouri, and Carruthersville, and Haytown, and they wanted that moonshine. I was glad to take it to them.
How close did you ever get to the nickname?
Get a what?
Nickname?
Nickname?
Yeah.
What nickname?
Well, everybody else has a nickname.
Well, when I got to Chicago, Big Joe Williams started calling me Memphis Charlie. But I never call myself enough. I thought Charlie was enough.
I noticed you just did a homecoming show in your hometown in Mississippi. What was that like?
Well, it was real nice to be there in Kosciuszko, but their sound system wasn't very together, so it was problematic. But it was fun, and everybody had a good time.
I'm very curious about your journey back to the Delta after living in California and traveling the world. What made you come back here?
Well, I have a history of here. My mom grew up out of the Sessions Plantation, which is right next to Stovall, and also Friars Point, and I had 3 uncles that lived here, so there's those early memories. And coming back, I started hearing about the Blues Festival. They had the Sunflower Blues Festival, and all this interest in blues here. I got to know a lot of people around here connected with the music one way or another, like Shelley Ritter and the Delta Blues Museum, and it just made sense for me to be here for many reasons. And I was living in California, and occasionally they would have these fires, and then it got to where there was fires every year, not just occasionally. And then it became a fire season, and it became like all year was a fire season. And I thought, while I got a house to sell, I ought to sell it and get out of here before it was burned down. And it just made sense to come home. That's it in another nutshell.
Laura, you had a question?
Yes, this question comes to you remotely from England. Ask him about recording INXS Suicide Blonde. Wonderful playing.
Well, there's a group called INXS in Australia. I was on a tour of Australia, and I got a phone call one day in my hotel, and somebody that represented this band INXS, and they said, "We know you're coming to Sydney, and we're recording, and we wonder if you'd come by the studio and record a few tunes with us." And I said, "Yeah, I'd be glad to." And then I got off the phone, and I said, "Who is this INXS? You never heard of them?" "No." "Well, they only sold 15 million records last year." "Well, good for them." And I got there, and they were really nice folks, and I just recorded there, and we did it in one day, and when I was back on the road. But I didn't tour with them or anything like that. It was just one day in the studio.
You've done a lot of stuff that's like outside of the blues realm. That's really cool. And I know that you did some playing with the Blind Boys of Alabama and recorded that song Down in the Hole for the show The Wire.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool song. Great harp playing on that, by the way.
Well, every season of The Wire, they had a different version of Down in the Hole. And Down in the Hole was written by a friend of mine, Tom Waits. Well, the Blind Boys recorded that tune, and David Lindley, who recently passed away, and was a great player and a great guy, one of the funniest people I ever met. We're on the session, and I forget what key it was, but I played a solo in 5th position, and we're listening to the playback. First, Lindley has a solo, and then my solo comes up, and Lindley turns to me and says, "That's the shit." And then but to my amusement, on the TV show, when they used this version of the theme song, they just skipped over Lindley's solo and went straight to mine.
So what key is that song in?
I don't remember.
So you're playing 5th position, because that's what now I need to know, so I can figure it out.
I don't remember the key.
Which harp you're using?
I might have been using an A flat to play in C, or I'm not sure.
All right. But you know it was 5th. You were playing 5th.
I know it was 5th
All right,
position.
well, I'll figure it out then.
Yeah.
And I'll figure out what key the song's in, because I couldn't figure it out.
Well, have
I
fun
was like,
with
what
it.
the hell harp is he using? I can't figure it out. So now I'll be able to. Thanks.
Well, when you go to different positions, like modes, the same notes have a different quality in a different key.
Yeah,
So that's what gives each one a different flavor.
right,
And
it's cool.
I was doing an overdub for a friend of mine who's in town. She's right here in the room with us. She did a tune in the key of G, and it has the 1, 4, 5 chords, which would be G and C and D. But she also has an A chord in there, which is not the usual blues chord. So I was thinking about, well, that would be 4th position on a C harmonica. And I'm messing around with how I would play, go to the key of A when she did, and to accompany her. But it seemed a little awkward. I was thinking about, there must be another way to do this. And I realized that 5th position, which would be E on a C harmonica, has all the same notes, except I think 5th has, E has an F sharp, which is not in A. But on the harmonica, it's not an F sharp, it's just F, which means it's minor, which just works really well. So I just play E, 5th position, instead of A, because I'm all the same notes. I hope you're following this.
It's rocket science.
And it's just a little trick of a way to back up the key of A by using patterns, a 5th position pattern. One of the things Shaky Walter told me, it really stuck with me. He said, just learn your patterns. And to me, that's kind of sums up the position playing and locking them together and how they fit and how to use them.
So, I want to ask you about one of my absolute all-time favorite albums of yours, Continental Drifter.
Oh,
And working with,
Quarteto Patria.
Yes.
Eliados Ochoa y el Quarteto Patria from
Cuba,
Santiago de Cuba.
yes,
They're just a blues band.
right,
Not,
yeah,
not
right,
really.
right.
What would be the
I just want to hear the story about how you ended up hooking up with those guys from Cuba.
Well,
And the fact that I love the fact that you stretched out and played over Cuban music, and I just got to do that, and it isn't easy. When I went to Cuba, I got to play with, tried to play over Guantanamera and all this stuff, and trying to.
one ton tomato.
Yeah. and it's not easy, so tell us a little bit about how that came.
Well, let me back up and start with, when I was growing up in Memphis, I would go around looking for old blues records, old 78s. Anything that said blues on it, I'd buy it. In junk stores or flea markets, and they're only a nickel or dimes. So I ended up, and also buy anything that had an interesting title to it, looked interesting. So I discovered a lot of music from around the world that to me had a bluesy feel to it, like it was, I call it heart music. And it wasn't necessarily commercial, it wasn't written in Tin Pan Alley. This is music of real people, and usually it's country music of a place. So I discovered music like rumbetica from Greece and Cuban traditional song, they call it, which is like hillbilly music of Cuba. And so I started getting, I discovered Quarteto Patria. Man, they just sounded so good. And I knew a guy that could get CDs out of Cuba, and he got me everything they recorded, and then I knew all their music. Well, time goes by. I'm at a festival in Bergen, Norway, and the producer of that festival, turns out he and I both are big fans of Quarteto Patria. Each one of us is the first person we've ever met that even heard of Quarteto Patria. So we're really excited to meet somebody that knows about this great group. And I go home, and then a couple of months later, he calls me up and says, hey, guess what? I found Quarteto Patria, and I'm bringing it to my festival. I want you to come back. I thought, man, this will be great. I ought to get one of those. Back then, they had those DAT players. I thought, maybe I should get one of those if I get a chance to jam with it. It'd be nice to get a tape. Wait a minute. They probably have a studio in Bergen. We could just go in the studio and record. And my idea had been to have Cuban rhythms playing blues. Well, I told my wife, Henrietta, about it, and she right away got a producer, a guy that knows how to turn the knobs, and we got a duffel bag full of tape and carried it to Norway. And we met Elianis Ochoa and talked to him, and he was all for it. He thought it was really interesting, and the whole concept. So I played him I had some cassettes of some blues. I played it to him, and I could just see they had never heard blues. They didn't know what blues was. They had never heard of B.B. King. They had never heard of Muddy Waters. They didn't know how to do this. I said, wait a minute. I know your music. I'll play with you. Won't be a problem. So I took some of their traditional tunes and wrote my own blues lyrics to go with them. So they played that tune. I sang my own lyrics and played harmonica with it. And that's how we saved the day in the studio. And after that, we toured together in Europe and Scandinavia and Spain, even Mexico, and once in California. It was great being on the road with them. I got a lot of stories. And I still today am good friends with Elianis, and he has a new album coming out, and I played on one of his tunes on that, and I haven't heard it yet, but I hear it just came out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Did they write Chan Chan?
Huh?
Did they write Chan Chan? Is that their song? Or is that a traditional song?
It was written by somebody, but I just put my own lyrics to it. They sang the refrain, or whatever you call it, to
Because we
Chan
did
Chan.
that when I was down there.
He did it?
We did that song.
Oh.
That's one of the songs we did.
It's a
Chan Chan.
classic. Every Cuban knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to the thing about different cultures having what I call their music of lament. I think in every corner of the world, you'll find some guy somewhere standing on the corner in his own dialect and language and culture singing about "my baby left me." It's a worldwide thing, and they keep leaving, you know.
She's locking the door.
And there's a guy singing about it. And she came back and it was worse, you know. So, you know, it's interesting to find these musics in these cultures around the world where people are singing the same things that blues is singing about. And even if you can't speak the same language, it seems like music from the heart. If you're playing from the heart, and the other guy's playing from the heart, you can play together effortlessly. It just seems to fall right into place, which is pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah. John?
Mr. Charlie, as you were talking, the music is a passion, and but it's also business, and therefore I have a two-part question, which may be inappropriate, so don't slap me down. Did you bring a harmonica with you?
You don't know, do you?
I don't know. It's a two-part question, yes or no?
Yeah, I got some of that.
Well, we came here to learn how to play harmonica better. We're passionate about this. We love it. And we're fans.
I appreciate that. Welcome to the club.
Would it be okay if we play some part for us?
Yeah, I just figure, you know, when we get through answering questions, we'll have
All right.
something.
So do you,
Thank you.
all right, so Paula, you have a question?
The Blues Brothers, was Albert really based on you? And if so, how did it come about? In the Blues Brothers film?
What's the question?
In the Blues Brothers film?
Right.
Yeah, it says,
Elwood.
when you look you up, it says that Elwood in the Blues Brothers was based on you. Is that right?
Look.
Yes.
Dan Aykroyd, he was a college student up in Kingston, Ohio, Kingston, Canada. There was a club there I used to play. I didn't know him at the time, but he hung out in this club, and I didn't have handcuffs on my heart case, but and I didn't wear a hat, but I wore shades and I had a black suit, and my hair was slicked back and pointed toe shoes, and he said he got the look for the Blues Brothers from how I dressed. And I've seen him say that in interviews, and he has told me that several times, and so it's true. Yeah.
So, any more questions before we play a little bit?
Who do you admire the most as far as harmonica players?
Besides harmonica players?
No,
far as-
which harmonica player is your favorite?
You know, these words about who's the best and who's your favorite I have problems with that, because who I like one day, I don't want to listen to them tomorrow.
Who's influence?
And everybody has something unique to them to offer that nobody else has, it seems like I was talking about, Howlin only played like about 3 notes. But man, they sounded so good, you know. Is that my favorite? I don't know. I sure do love it. Or another guy some of these guys are, especially today, are so, they get it, to me, it's like they've turned it around. Like they think the technique, it's all about technique. And they just use the music to show off their technique. Where I think you should use the technique to support the music. And some of these guys, it's just on and on and on and on and all the overblows and it reminds me of somebody with a huge vocabulary and nothing to say.
I'm with you on that.
I'd rather hear a guy play 3 notes and make me feel something.
Hallelujah.
And so technique is great, but it really shouldn't, it should be supporting the music, not the whole story. But that's just me. What?
Amen. Yeah.
Was music in your family?
Yeah, only not any real professional players. There was an uncle that had a one-man band. I asked him one time, I said, where did you play? He said, I just followed the harvest. So he would kind of hobo around when people were, making money, working, getting paid. He'd be right there playing to get tips. He showed me an instrument. He said he claimed he invented. He had a bucket of water, and he had a pipe that hung from a string or something. He could lower it in and out of the water, and he would hit the side and play melodies as it went in and out of the water. He was a character. But my mom played piano, my dad played guitar, and mandolin, harmonica, and there were other people. My grandmother played piano in church, but nobody was, recording or pursuing a career in music. The music was something, not a real job. It's just something that was a hobby. That's not how you make a living.
So were they supportive of you, or were they like, oh, get a real job?
They came around.
I got the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. So, well, nobody has any more questions. Maybe we can get Charlie to play a couple. You want us to back you up? Or do you want to just play by yourself? You want to just play with guitar? Or how do you want to do this?
You got a guitar back there?
Yeah.
Let's see. If you like playing through a microphone, this blows me away. Productions makes these great harmonica microphones. They'll create your own grill for you. Mine's got my initials in it. It's exotic wood with a volume on the back, and these are great.
Who makes that?
Blows Me Away Productions.
Like that fancy case you got there.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time.
Now, where can I get one of those?
This is the only one there is.
What you want for it?
How much you got?
Where's that nickel?
Oh, or I could just place it here, maybe. Or,
I saw you grab the mic.
let's see what this sounds like. How about just kind of a slow shuffle tonight? Well, what I'm gonna do is, he's gonna play an A, and I'm gonna go through 5 different harmonicas playing in the key of A. So it'll be first position, then I'll go to second position, then third, and then fourth, and fifth, and so you can know what it sounds like. Unless y'all got a better idea.
Then we can go home and listen to our records. Second position. Third position.
Fourth position. Fifth position. Go home. That's how you can have fun with the positions.
We're talking about harmonica now.
Yeah. When you know that, when you realize if you want to play blues and it's 1, 4, 5, the three chords, every position has just 1, 4, 5. So as you keep going, you want to play in, some people just play on the 1 all the way through. Well, you can follow the chord changes by using the positions that match that chord change. So that's why learning the positions can help you, give you more of a mental picture of how to navigate and what you got available. It's the only instrument you can't see anything that's going on. Every instrument you can watch the hand somehow, whether it's drums or saxophone or glockenspiel. But the harmonica is all covered up and you can't see what you're doing, so you really need a good mental picture. And that's why, to my way of thinking, learning these patterns for the different positions gives you a strong way to go. Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So good to have you. Thank you so much for coming.